Welcome back to Midnight in the Mountains. How you doing, Aaron?
I'm doing fine today, Laura. How are you today?
Good. I got lots of stuff to share with you.
You do? Is it going to be exciting?
Yeah.
Woo!
I mean, maybe scary to some people, but it's exciting to me.
I cannot wait to hear what you got for me today.
Yeah, but anyways, before we jump into it, do you have anything? What's been up with you? What have you been up to? Because we haven't chatted in a while.
It's been a little while, yeah. I have been busy, as one does, you know. Seems like the older I get, the busier I get. But it's been an interesting spring and early summertime. You know, we were talking here in Tennessee. It's been a very kind of wet and rainy springtime. The National Weather Service here said it's the wettest that it's been in Tennessee since the 1970, I believe. So yeah, that's a lot of rain, and so it's kind of made things really lush and green. So I mean, it's kind of really nice out. Like it's one of the greenest I've ever seen it here. So that's kind of nice. But you know, it's kind of we've been getting rained out of some events and stuff like that. But you know, it's okay. I can't complain too much.
Yeah, same here. We've had a lot of rain too. But
which is kind of a big change from like last year, because last summer.
Yeah.
You know, last summer it was super dry here. Like it only rained a couple times, and so now maybe it's just kind of swinging back the other direction, and we're just going to get flooded out all summer long.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm kind of waiting for it to swing back though. Maybe by the end of the summer, I'm sure we'll have some kind of a drought. Usually happens here, anyways. I'm sure it's there too.
Yeah. Sometimes like August and September can be kind of dry. Occasional, you know, like historically it's pretty dry, but we'll see what happens.
All right, so try to think, where should I start? I feel like I've been like everywhere and nowhere at the same time. I've been super busy. So I've had a bunch of things that have happened, and I'll like text you like, okay, we need to record before I forget all these things. And I think at one point I had a list of like 3 or 4 things, and I'm not even remembering all of them. So to start out, I got asked to go on a trip to Gettysburg with some of my friends, and it was just like an overnight trip, and we ended up staying at the Hoover House. It's in a town next door to Gettysburg. So I've been there several times, and that was their first time staying there. So we did a little bit of investigating. I still have not gone through and listened to my audio because we kind of did a lot. We all brought our recorders. I think some people did go through their audio and they got some stuff, but I'm not really sure what they ended up getting. But so I guess I should start the beginning of the night. We ordered pizza and we were going to bring it back to the Hoover House, and we're sitting there and I was talking to this guy. It was the first time I met him, and he had gone to the Burn Brae Mansion with my friends, and I went with them a couple years ago to Burn Brae.
I remember that one.
Yeah, and that's a whole story in itself. I think I told that story on here. I definitely told it to Jason.
Yep.
And, oh boy. So, he proceeds to tell me that when they went, they had the same thing happen on their trip where somebody ended up crying, and it was a whole thing. So, he tells me that he was like, I was in my room, and I was getting ready to go to sleep, and the door handle on the closet started jingling. And I said, What room were you in? And he said, I was in the big room where it's like a suite. And I said, oh my gosh. I said, that's where my friends were. And they were trying to investigate, and they did the Estes method. And my friend was in the closet with the headphones on, and everybody on the outside of the door saw the door handle start jingling. Ooh. And they opened up the door, and my friend Rich is just standing there with his hands in his pockets, just hanging out. So I flipped out because I was like, no freaking way is that the same room, the same closet that the door handle jingles. I'm like, what is that about? Mm-hmm. And then, oh my gosh, there was something else. I wish I could remember. See, this is why I need to write things down. I mean to write things down, and then I just get sidetracked.
They had an interesting experience.
Yeah. So he had some like similar things that we had. So anyways, we get our pizza, we go to the Hoover House, we hang out with Pam and Steve, who are the owners. And then it's starting to get late, so they go to bed, and then we decide that we're going to investigate. So we start out in the Holzer suite. It's named after Hans Holzer. And We all have our recorders out. We had some cat balls out. We got some like responses with the cat balls. And I'm not sure if you're familiar, but people who investigate, they'll take cat balls with them and they turn them on. And the theory is you want the spirit to like touch it so it'll light up.
Okay.
So that's kind of how the cat ball thing works. So we got some responses with that. And then we moved into another room, which is just called the Hoover Suite. I've slept there a few times before. And it's so weird because like when you go into that room, you go around the bed and there's like this really big kind of awkward looking closet. I'm not really sure what they used it for back in the day because it used to be a nursing home.
Okay.
And before that, it was a speakeasy down in the basement. So anyhow, whatever that room is for, and I've always felt this before, that room just feels weird. It has this weird, uncomfortable energy to it.
Okay.
And my friends went back in there and they said, they're like, I don't know what's back there, but it feels weird back there. And I was like, yeah, I have felt that too when I've been in there. And they have these books in the room so that the guests can write down their experiences and stuff like that. And
are the books like, can you read other people's experiences?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, they're just like little notebooks and then people write their entries in it. Like they write the date that they stayed and then if they had any encounters during the night, anything happened to them during the night or whatever.
Okay.
And a lot of people did. And then there's some that say, nothing happened. And there was people writing in the book saying that when they would take a picture of the mirror that's in the room, they got like a figure in the mirror of a person. So after I read that, I was like, oh my goodness, because I think like the second time I was at the Hoover House, another guy that was there and he was like an investigator. He showed me a picture that he had taken of the same mirror and there was a figure in the mirror. Man
or a woman or just
just a figure, like you couldn't tell what it was.
Okay.
So there's just a bunch of things, that kind of line up that like other people have experienced too, which is kind of crazy.
It is kind of weird.
Yeah.
Seeing a notebook and just, saw something weird here, and just, different people seeing the same thing in the same places, I guess.
Yeah.
Bit of weird.
Yeah. So, it definitely has some weight to it.
Sure.
And, the next day I had texted Pam because I forgot to ask her that morning when we got up and had breakfast. I said, where did that dresser come from that's in the Hoover Suite? And she's like, oh yeah, I got that at the antique store. There's a bunch of antique stores down there and there's one like not too far like down the road. I went there last time. They had some neat stuff,
I'm sure.
But yeah, so then after that room we went up into, I think it's the Rosebud room. There's 2 rooms upstairs. I always get the two rooms switched. It's the one that's to the right by the bathroom. And anybody that's been there, they'll know what room I'm talking about. So this guy that was with us, his name was John, and he was one of their friends that came, and John ended up going to bed. But he had given my friend a spirit box. And a spirit box is basically just a radio that skips through frequencies, and then,
yep.
You'll hear words blurred out. I said, you guys want to do the Estes method? And they're like, yeah. I brought my noise canceling headphones and I went into, it's kind of like an attic. But it's also kind of like a closet. It's kind of just like this weird room.
And that's off to the side, or is it like upstairs kind of thing?
So this is on the 3rd floor, these 2 bedrooms and the bathroom, and then there's other rooms in there. But it's like a closet. It's in that room. Like okay. You open the door and you can go in, but it's not really like a closet, but it has like an attic feel because you can see the rafters and the bricks
okay.
and stuff.
Sure, yeah, I gotcha.
So there was a chair in there. So I went in there and I sat in the chair and I was like, guys, I'm not putting a blindfold on and I'm not closing my eyes because I'm in here in the dark.
Gonna see if something's coming after me. And
they're like, no, that's fine. So they both sat on the bed and I wasn't really getting much. Like a Christian radio channel kept blipping in and it kept saying, John, John, John. And it was like, you know, because there's the book of John in the Bible.
Sure.
And none of us thought anything at the time. Like, nothing. Like, we didn't, because there was other stuff that I was blurting out. And they were, like, laughing because the stuff I was saying, nothing made sense. So when I came back out, they're like, yeah, we were out here cracking up because nothing was making sense. So we got tired. I think we ended up going down in the basement then to try to take some pictures because Pam has this one picture of the shadow entity that she got a couple years ago. It's kind of a really crazy, creepy picture.
Sure.
It's definitely like a figure that's formed, but it's like feet are missing.
Ugh.
So, yeah, so it's pretty creepy, but I don't know. I mean, I've slept there a handful of times and I've always been fine. You know, I wouldn't keep going back if I felt that there was anything super bad there, but I don't know. As of, like, I'm not really sure what's going on because, like, as of late, I guess there's been some weirder activity. I'm not sure. So we decide to all go to bed because it's probably, like, midnight at this point or maybe even later. So now this building is from 1912. So, you know, if you've been in an old building, they're usually, like an old house, there usually is like rooms that connect with doors or closets that will connect to other rooms and things like that. So the room that I was staying in had a door that connected to John's room, but it's obviously locked.
Sure.
But he slept with his light on all night long because I could see it under the door crack. That's how I know that he did that, right?
Okay.
So I go to bed. And I couldn't fall asleep. I'm listening to a podcast. I'm in bed for like an hour maybe. So I get up to go to the bathroom. I was on the second floor sleeping with everybody else. The other two rooms had bathrooms in them, but my room did not have a bathroom. So I had to go up to the third floor where we were investigating. And I went up to the bathroom and I started to walk back down. And it smelled just like an old person's home. It smelled like a nursing home. I'm sure you know that smell.
Yeah.
I don't know how to. Yeah.
Old clothes or I don't know. I know what you're talking about, but I don't know exactly how to describe it.
I don't know how to describe it either. But I smelled that smell, right? And it was just so weird because it has not been a nursing home for years and years, and Pam keeps the place very clean. It's a very nice place, very clean. So it wasn't anything like the house was dirty or anything like that. And I've never smelled that. I've never gotten that smell before. So I'm like, this has to be some kind of residual smell that's popping up. That's a paranormal thing that's happening right now because I don't have there's no explanation for it other than that.
Sure.
So I go to bed and I think I had fallen asleep. And I think it was at 2 or 3 in the morning. I don't know if I had woken up because I knew that I woke up like, you know, a bunch of times throughout the night and then I'd fall back to sleep. But I hear John yelling in the room next to me. Yeah, he's like, hey, get off me. And he's like yelling and I'm like, okay. And I'm like laying there. I'm like, what is happening?
What do I do?
Yeah. So I'm kind of scared because I'm like, what's going on? And I wait a few minutes and then I don't hear anything else. I'm like, okay, well, he must be okay, so I'm going to go back to sleep.
Don't knock on the door.
Yeah.
Hello?
I mean, yeah, I probably should have done that. That's probably a shitty thing for me to not have done. But I mean, if he would have kept yelling, I absolutely would have gotten up.
Sure.
No questions asked. And would have made sure he was okay.
Like, hello, buddy, are you okay there?
Yeah, so the next morning we get up. And we all go down to breakfast and John is telling us what happened in the middle of the night. He's like, I felt, what did he say? He said something punched his ankle.
Weird.
Yeah. Punched his ankle and he was like, hey, stop it. And he said he felt it like grab his leg and he was like, hey, get off. And then it stopped.
I'm sure he went right back to sleep after that.
Yeah, I think he was awake for a while. I don't think that he, yeah.
Yeah, no, there was no sleeping after that.
I had considered sleeping in that room, but I knew that that room's kind of active and I did not want to sleep there. So I could have gotten dibs on whatever room I had wanted because like I've been there before, so I could have just ran to like whatever room.
Sure, I'm staying this one.
So no. So there was that. And then my friend, she said that she heard me get up to go to the bathroom in the middle of the night, and she said it smelled like an old person's home, like a nursing home.
So
like
she
old
smelled it
folks'
too?
home. Yes. She smelled it too. And I was like, oh my God. I said, yes. I said, I smelled the same thing.
Now, did you walk past her room to go to the bathroom?
Yeah. So, I mean, the way the second floor is set up, I mean, there's other rooms on the second floor, but there's three guest bedrooms. And my room, like say if I was standing in my room, I would have opened the door. I would have seen her door directly across from mine. Yeah, so that was my Hoover House experience.
The very exciting. Now, did John have anything else to say about his experience? Like, or did he just say, hey, something punched my ankle and that was that?
I think it freaked him out and it pissed him off. Is what it was, but I don't remember him saying like if he thought it was a male presence or like female or anything like that. He didn't see anything, he didn't hear anything, he just felt it.
Sure.
But I guess after we all got home, I guess he said to my friend that he did get some voices and recordings because he left his recorder go all night long.
Okay.
So I actually should really reach out.
Yeah, because I mean, he might have recorded something right before,
Right. I know.
Or even afterwards, really.
I know. I'm really curious to see if like you're saying, or even during, when he was yelling at whatever it was.
Yep. It'd probably be kind of hard to hear over his voice because I'm sure it would have picked up, if you're yelling, that's going to kind of drown everything else out. But still, nonetheless, just see what else is on there would be interesting.
Yeah. Listening to me tell that story and then me not getting up, that just really like, I sound like such an asshole because that's not my personality. I'm very like, if somebody's not okay, I want to make sure they're okay and I want to help them. But I just
laid in bed with 1,000, 2 1,000, 3 1,000, 4 1,000, 5 1,000. All right. Everything sounds good. I'm going back to bed.
Yeah. I was like a little kid, under the covers. And I think my eyes were like huge because it's like, holy shit, what is happening? But yeah. So if that happens again and I'm somewhere, I'm going to make sure I'm going to tell myself now that I'm going to get up.
I got to get up and just to double check, make sure everything's on the up and up.
But I mean, you hear in paranormal stories all the time that something happens that scares somebody really bad. And then they just roll over and go back to sleep. And they don't know why they did that. I mean, in my defense, I guess that's what happened in this case.
I mean, yeah. I mean, you're not wrong. For me personally, like it feels like if I get woken up in the middle of the night by somebody punching my ankle, I just don't think I'm going to just roll over and go back to sleep, though.
No.
Like, I mean, like, maybe if I felt a touch, okay, whatever, it could have been anything. But, like, that's a very distinctive feeling. That's not like a soft touch. That's not like, oh, the wind was blowing. No, like, if you say, hey, somebody punched my ankle, that exudes force, that exudes movement. And, yeah. Maybe I could. I guess it would really depend on how tired I was, to be fair.
Yeah, I mean, I really don't know. I really don't know.
True.
But yeah, so then, okay, so the next day we went into Gettysburg and we actually went to the Jennie Wade House, which is actually the first time I've ever been inside of it, which was really exciting to me because I've always wanted to do a tour of that place and I've never done it.
Sure.
You really need to get up and come to Gettysburg because it would be really cool to take you to all this stuff. Really,
it would have been a good time for sure.
Yeah, at some point we have to make it happen. Okay, so anyway, so we did this tour of the Jennie Wade House, and nothing happened when I was there. But I do remember there was a time that my parents went and they took my sister with them, and this was like years ago. Like my sister was like a kid.
Okay. And
at the very end of the tour, they take you into the basement. The story goes that Jennie And her name was actually Virginia, I believe. And then they called her Ginny. But the newspaper printed her name as Jennie. So everybody started calling her Jennie. And this was before she passed away. I don't remember why her name was in the newspaper for whatever reason, but this was before that. So she got known as Jennie. And the tour guide told us that, which I thought was kind of interesting. Sure. And it was not her house. So she lived with her mom up the road. And I believe her father was in the war. But
you mean like when you said the war, like the Civil War?
Yeah, yes, the Civil War. So when the fighting started in Gettysburg, her mom and they took her little brother, and I guess they were taking care of the neighbor kid for whatever reason, and they took them down the street to her sister's house. And her sister's husband was fighting in the war, so he was not there, but her sister was pregnant, so they came down to stay there with her to make sure she was okay. They also thought that it would be safer there, it would be out of the fire, like the crossfire. And they were pumping water out of their well and setting it in buckets outside for the soldiers to come get something to drink, and they were also working on baking bread for them, because before Jennie got shot, there was like a shell that was shot and hit their roof. So it blew a big hole in the roof. Oh, wow. And the house is actually split in half. So it was rented to Jennie's sister and her husband. And then the other half had another family in it. But the other family was actually not in there at this time. Thank goodness for that. So it knocked a big hole in the roof, and it created a hole in the wall between the two, I guess you would say, apartments, for lack of better word. So while they're baking bread, Jennie gets shot. It comes through the door, and it strikes her in the back, and it kills her instantly. I took pictures, and you can actually still see, like, the doors that are there that are original still have the bullet holes in them that they went through. Yeah. I'll send you pictures. It's actually really wild, because it goes through the front door, and then it goes through, there's a door that separates the kitchen and the living room area that's actually inside the house. So that wooden door was open, and I guess Jennie was behind that other wooden door. So it came in through the kitchen door and then went through that door, and then it struck her in the back. And I think they said it went into her heart and it killed her immediately. Sure, thank God for that. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So she didn't suffer. So I guess, obviously a commotion breaks out in the house, and I believe that the soldiers outside heard this happening. So they came in and they were like, we have to get you guys to safety. So what they did was they carried Jennie's body up the steps upstairs, and then, the mother, the two boys, and her sister followed along, and they went upstairs, and they climbed up over the rubble of where that shell had blown a hole in the roof. So they went up through that, and then they went through the other side of the house upstairs, down the steps, and then down through like the kitchen door, and went outside into the cellar, into the basement.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Because otherwise they would have had to go out their door and run all the way around the house to get to that cellar. Right. Yeah. So they figured, the soldiers were like, no, let's get you out. We're going to go this way.
Sure.
Which is just, it's just crazy. Could you even imagine doing that after, one of your family members has passed away? Like, that's just...
Yeah, really. No, that'd be wild, crazy. But, Gettysburg was kind of wild anyways. Like, the whole battle itself was wild.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. So what they did was, and then they had a cot in the basement where they showed that where they would have laid Jennie's body. Because I don't remember how long it was, but then they buried her at some point. Sure. But obviously not right then. And so when my parents and my sister went there years ago, they were in the basement, and they were, getting the story. They were being told what happened there. There was this little girl that started yelling and flipping out, saying that somebody touched her, but nobody touched her. Oh, so she felt something.
Right.
Yeah.
That's a little creepy.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. And I almost forgot. The day after I get home from this trip, Monsters Among Us, it's another podcast, they put out an episode on the Civil War on Gettysburg.
Kidding.
Yeah, and I was like, wow. I was like, what a coincidence that was.
No kidding.
I'll have to send it to you.
Yeah.
That's one of my favorite podcasts. So I listened to it, and this one girl calls in, because it's a call-in show, and then the host reacts to the calls. The girl calls in, and she said, I don't remember why, but she didn't do a tour of the house, but she said that she looked into the bullet hole in the kitchen door. She looked in the hole of that door, and she said she swears that she saw somebody that fits Jennie's description laying on the floor.
Ooh.
And it was closed for the day. There was no tours were running or whatever.
Sure.
I think that's what it was.
It's kind of crazy they never replaced the door, though, with the hole in it. That's so weird to me. Like, I mean, that house is, 100, 200 years old almost? And they never replaced the door. Well, maybe not quite that old, but 150 years old.
I mean, I don't know, because they kept it to preserve it as history. I mean, if you go to the Farnsworth house, which is right down the road, you could walk there. There's bullet holes all over the place in that building.
And I mean, they do have a house in Franklin, which is pretty close to me. It's called the Carter House, which is the same way. It was basically a makeshift hospital for the Battle of Spring Hill, I think, or Battle of Franklin. And so, I mean, yeah, there's the bullet holes like in the concrete, or not the concrete, but the bricking and stuff like that.
Right.
But you think like a wooden door, it would have been replaced. I'm sure somebody still lived in that house afterwards. After, at least for, it was just for a year or something before they decided to make it like a historical place. But maybe not. Maybe, I don't know.
So the people that actually own the house, because like I said, they were, renting it out to people. The owner of it, he wanted to keep it and preserve it as like a piece of history.
Okay.
It never got changed as far as like, I mean, yeah.
Okay, that makes way more sense then. Because basically, he had the foresight to saying, hey, this is kind of an important place. We're going to keep it the same, yada, yada, whatever. And he wasn't like, like people today, which they would have just, cleaned it up, replaced the bullet holes, and started renting it out.
So, yeah, it's actually really sad. There's this glass case, and it's not on the side where Jennie's sister lived, but it's on the other side of the house. There's this glass case, and it has kind of like artifacts and things like that. And in there's, I believe, a love letter from her boyfriend that I'm not sure if I think they found it on his person, because I think he also got killed either like that same day or shortly thereafter or something like that. And then one of their other friends got killed also, or I forget the whole story, but it's kind of really crazy. Like 3 of them that got killed because the other 2 were fighting in the war.
Sure.
She passed away, she got killed, and then her boyfriend got killed. So then they have a love letter from him in the case, and they also have a piece of wood that has bloodstains on it from her. Which
really?
Is like,
wow.
Yeah, that's...
They must have pulled the floor up, I guess, maybe?
Yeah, I guess they like cut the piece out. I have a picture of the glass case that I took.
It's kind of, that's a super sad story. I guess it just kind of strikes me as that, the people had the foresight to, kind of
that's the word I was looking for.
Yeah, did save that kind of stuff for future generations.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's really cool, actually, to be fair.
I mean, yeah, because it shows all of us, I guess, what happened, and so it's not forgotten, really. Right.
Because I mean, it's easy to forget those type of things, especially something that's 150 years ago. But yeah, I would really like to go to Gettysburg. I mean, I know the actual history behind it and the battle and all that stuff, but I would like to see it at some point.
Yeah. All right, so moving on. What else do I have next that's been kind of weird? The most recent thing. So my sister and I have been hiking a lot, right?
Okay.
And this one day, I just wanted to go hike up to a waterfall. And I wasn't trying to do anything paranormal, nothing. I just wanted to hike and I wanted to sightsee. So we go hike, we go see some waterfalls. And then I said to her, I'm like, do you want to... Let me back up. We went into the Delaware Water Gap National Recreational Area. And I've been wanting to go to some of these waterfalls. And I follow this guy, which I've talked about a million times, called The Wandering Woodsman on YouTube. And he does all these history things. He tells ghost stories sometimes. He hikes all over the place. And he was up in some of these spots that I seen some of these videos. And I'm like, okay, I want to go there. So I tell my sister, I'm like, let's go to this waterfall. So we go, and we couldn't find the one we were looking for, but we found some others, and we did some hiking up in there. And we're about to leave, and I'm like, do you want to go into town and get something for dinner, or do you want to go to this abandoned cemetery that's 20 minutes down the road? And
oh, man, that's a tough one. Pizza, cemetery. Oh man, I don't.
So
I love the choices there. That's hilarious.
I feel like you would have chose the pizza.
Well, I mean, we could take the pizza to the cemetery, you know. I mean, you know, but anyway,
that's not a terrible idea.
Just,
on the way.
The way it came out, it was just kind of funny. It was like, well, do you want to get some dinner, or do you want to go to this abandoned cemetery where weird shit's gonna happen?
Yeah, but but that's the other thing. This was just a cemetery that I saw on his video and seemed completely unassuming, and I never heard about this place until the Wandering Woodsman went there. I didn't think of anything strange was going to happen. I wasn't seeking anything out. I was just going to see the cemetery and see some really old tombstones. So I asked her, you know, do you want to get food? Do you want to go? And she's like, well, there's not really anything in town to eat. And I was like, yeah, you're right. So I was like, okay, so let's go. So we go to the cemetery, and I followed the GPS there. I almost missed it because it's like I said, it's an abandoned cemetery, and it's literally up on like the hillside.
Okay.
And it's surrounded by trees and rocks and shrubs and everything like that. So you
probably
pull
very
in.
overgrown. And
yeah. Mm-hmm. So you pull in, and there's a mowed path, and there's enough spot to pull in off the road. We get out, and we walk over to the entrance for the trail to go up to the cemetery, and you walk into an entrance of trees, and then it says Swartwood Cemetery on a wooden board that somebody carved out the name. And we're starting to walk in, and I hear an owl go off. It made the sound like a barred owl sounds, which is like the "who cooks for you" kind of kind of deal. And I was like, "Oh, do you hear that?" I said that to my sister, and she's like, "No, I didn't hear that." I'm like, I just heard an owl. So we go up and we walk in, and mind you, we're like racing the sunset because the sunset at 8:08 that night, and it's like 7:50 something. And
I'm like, so it's getting dark.
Yeah. So my sister's like screwing around, walking behind me. I'm like, will you hurry up? I'm like, are you coming? She's like, is it up there? And I was like, yes, it's up here. I'm like, let's go. So we go up and we walk in, and she just is, I don't know, she's like kind of nervous. And she's just kind of staying towards the front of the cemetery, and I head towards the back immediately because I kind of just want to check everything out and then work my way up to the front. And, you know, I'm minding my own business. I'm taking some pictures, some videos, and like reading the names and the dates and stuff like that. And I work my way up to the front. I come over, and my sister's like kind of standing there like reading the stones and everything, and she's like, oh, like I feel like spider webs. And I just kind of looked at her, and then I looked away because I thought she meant like actual spider webs.
Sure.
I'm like, okay, whatever. And I walk away, and like, I go back in the back, and I'm like, are you gonna come back here? I'm like, look at these. I'm like, these are really neat. So we go in the back, and we start hearing like noises up on the hillside because, like I said, this is up on a hillside, but it's it like levels out and it's flat, and then there's like this spot where this old road had run, but it's obviously like it's covered with leaves now, like nobody drives on it anymore. Yeah. And next to that, the hillside goes up again, and it's all wooded, and there's rocks, really big rocks. I'm like, there's no way there's hiking trails up there. You can't. There's not.
Way too overgrown, way too...
Yeah. So we hear something, and it sounds almost like something or someone is yelling up on the mountain. And it's hard to hear exactly because there's also cars that are driving past down below on the road. And I'm like, what the fuck is that? I'm like, it sounds like an owl hooting that's on drugs. Like, literally. I'm like, I can't even, it didn't sound like a real owl. It sounded like, and I hesitate to say the word person making owl sounds because it didn't even sound like that. It just sounded really messed up. And that's the only way I can explain it, because we both like stopped at the same time. And she's like, I think I even heard it before you did. And we both stop and we just kind of pause and we get real still and we're listening. And she's like, okay, I'm out of here. Like, she's like, let's go. And she starts walking. And I'm like, no. And I'm like, no, I want to hear this. So I start walking over closer to where it's coming from. And I'm like legitimately just wanting to walk off into the woods and go find this.
Kind of like a siren call, like for the old pirate, where it's like, come see.
100%. And that's like a thing. That's like a thing in the woods. If something does that, it's like you're drawn to it, even though you shouldn't, but it's calling you to go to it. And that's kind of,
come see me.
That's like how I felt. And I'm like, I start walking over towards there and my sister's still like yelling at me. She's like, no, let's go. And I'm like, but I'm like, we could be having a paranormal experience right now. I was like, I want to know what it is. She's like, nope, I'm out of there. She's like, see you later. And she's practically like running, but not running because you have to be careful. It's grown up and stuff. Yeah. And I could laugh about it now, but I hear her going like, I'm sorry, because she's like stepping on the tombstone, so she's apologizing to the people that had passed.
Please don't be angry at me. I just gotta go right now.
Yeah. So I finally catch up to her because she's looking for me at the entrance, and she's like, say a prayer and get out of there. She's like, let's go. So I kind of did. And she's like, tell whatever it is that I can't follow you. So I did that. I was like, cannot follow me, everything, whatever. We're kind of like booking it down the trail because you kind of have to like walk up the hill to get into the cemetery. But she's walking slow, and I'm like, can you walk any fucking slower? I'm like, because at this point,
it's starting to get dark. It's probably almost dark at this point.
Yes,
right?
It was the sun, because we were like racing the sunset, and the sun is literally setting. It's getting dark out, and then I don't know, like something in my brain clicked in, and I started getting nervous. And I think the fact that she's like the rational one getting nervous and getting scared, like we actually need to get out of here.
We got to go right now.
Yeah. So we get back in the truck and we lock the door, and we're both freaked out. And she's like, I think there's a campground up there or something. And I said, no, Catherine. I said, there's a campground across the road over here. So we pull out to the road, and we're sitting there, and I'm like, there's a sign right up here for the campground. And she's like, okay, so drive back that way. So we drive back the road to go look. And we pull in the one road because it splits. There's a road that goes up the mountain from where we heard the voices, and then there's a road that goes to the side. And we were going to go up the mountain first, but I saw the side road, and I saw a sign, like a national park. National park sign kind of deals.
Yep.
So we pull in because I wanted to see what was over there, what the sign said, and if there was anything over there. So we pull in, and it's literally just a bathroom and an empty parking lot, and like the bathroom door was open with the light on, and my sister's like, well, that's creepy. I mean, I didn't really think anything of that, but
yeah, I mean, that's
yeah. So there was nothing over there. There was no cars. There was nobody hiking on the trails. So we go out that road, and we proceed to drive up the mountain. And by this point, it's almost dark. We have our windows down. We're trying to look out the windows, seeing if we see anything or hear anything. I'm going slow. And I had guesstimated that it was probably like 1.5 miles to like 2 miles till we got to the top, because it winds around and it's a pretty long road. And we get all the way to the top, and there's one house up there. One house up there. Mm-hmm. And then it comes out to like a T, and then the road that you could, turn left or right on, and that's it. Because we wanted to see if there was any kind of hiking trails or just anything up there.
Sure,
and
I'm
like, there's nothing up here. There's no trails. And we're just
woods.
We're freaked out at this point. So we turn around, we go back down the road, and we're driving home. And I'm like, when we get home, I'm going to look on my All Trails app because that's what we've been using for hiking. And the All Trails app, you can click on the map and, zoom in and out, and it shows you a dotted line where the hiking trails are.
Yeah.
So on our ride home, we didn't tell each other what we heard till we were driving home. She goes, it sounded like somebody, like a person, like somebody was making a wolf howling sound. And I'm like, what? I'm like, dude, I heard owls, but messed up owls that sounded like they were on drugs. She's like, no. She's like, I heard like a dog howling, but like a person making that noise. She goes, the best way I can describe it is, in the movie Twilight, when Jacob and his friends are messing around and they're still in their human form and they're messing around making howling wolf noises. And she's like, that's what it sounded like.
Oh, that's weird.
So she heard a dog, a wolf, whatever, but she said it sounded like a person was making that noise. And I heard an owl that sounded like a person or something was making that noise.
That's weird. Especially with you guys being that close. Like, not that far apart and hearing those two very different things. Yeah,
we might have been like 20 feet apart, if that.
Right.
Like, if that.
Ugh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then she tells me, she's like, I felt like I had spider webs on me the whole time in there. And I was like, oh, you mean the paranormal electric spider web feeling. I feel like I've told you about this. I've experienced this before where it's like you're in somewhere that's known for paranormal activity or whatever, and it feels like an electric spider web is on you.
Energy.
Yeah. Like, the only way I can describe it is if you've ever used, like, TENS unit or whatever, like, when you've had, like, if you have, like, neck or back issues, like, they put the little patches on you.
Oh, I've heard of it, but I've never used one.
Oh, yeah. So it's like a very, very small electric current. But that's what she was feeling the whole time. She said she felt like it was all over her.
Ooh.
And I was like, holy crap. Yeah.
So have you guys been back there at all? Or...
No. She tells me, she's like, I'm not going back there. And I was like, no, like, we need to go back there. And she's like, if you can get Rich to come, then I'll go back, which is my other friend that I always talk about who we, like, paranormal investigate with or whatever. She's like, if you can get him to come, then I'll go. And so, I've already texted him and been like, hey, you want to go to an abandoned cemetery? And the thing that's kind of wild about that is when we were almost home, I looked out the window and I saw the moon, and it was really big, and it was like bright and yellow, and it had these like foggy, misty clouds over it and looked really spooky. And I was like, oh my gosh, look at the moon. I gave her my phone. I'm like, look on the moon app, and it had just been a full moon the day before. It said it was 99% full still.
Sure.
So I'm starting to wonder if it had just been a full moon and the fact that the sun was setting had something to do with some kind of ramped up activity or something.
Possibly. What about, so you said you were going to check the app about the trails.
Yes.
Was there an actual trail there or?
No.
I didn't think so. Yeah.
No. I still have, I can send you, I have screenshots of my All Trails app where we were, and there's no trails there. And I also took screenshots of Google Maps, and I circled the cemetery, and then I drew the line up to where we drove, and then I circled the house at the top of the hill. Okay. And I was pretty accurate. It's just about 2 miles to the top of the hill.
That's a pretty good walk. Or, a pretty good, distance up there.
So that shows you the distance between, there's nothing there. And I don't know. There could have been some weirdos up in the woods.
What was the name of the cemetery?
It's called Swartwood's. Oh, I have more to add for you. It's called Swartwood Cemetery.
How do you spell that?
SWART and then wood. Okay, so get this. So I get home, and the days following after, I start researching this place.
Sure.
So the next day, I go to my friend's house, and they had made a joke about it had just been a full moon, and they were like, oh, do you see any werewolves or whatever? And because I always talk to them we always talk paranormal, we always talk ghost stories, whatever. And I said, no. I said, but I got a story for you. And I started my story out. I was like, Kat and I went hiking in the Delaware Water Gap area. And I was like, we were up by like Bushkill and like the Milford area. And they both said at the same time, they're like, oh, that area is creepy.
It looks pretty creepy. There's photos on Google Maps.
Yeah.
It looks a very rural, very...
Oh, yeah. No, like, that's what I'm saying. Like, the area, when the sun goes down, it's dead up there.
Yeah,
there's nothing.
There's nothing, yeah.
There's nothing in that area. Literally.
Well, looks like some farmer fields around it.
Yeah, there are fields.
That's crazy. Okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, go ahead. I'm just curious to see what it looked like.
I have pictures and videos. I'll send you all that stuff to you then when we're done. And I also had told my other friend, before I told her about what happened to us, she goes, yeah, that area is really creepy if you drive through there at night. So now I have 3 other people saying something before I even told them the story.
Sure.
And it's just like, oh my God.
It's creepy.
So what I had found out, this is actually really crazy, and I'm still digging into it actively. So my friend who I told the story, she did some digging of her own, and she started sending me links. So I started looking into stuff. The oldest grave in that cemetery is one of the Swartwoods from that family. So they started this graveyard for all the surrounding families in the area.
Okay.
And his son had moved over just across the Delaware River, because the Delaware River runs right through there and it splits Pennsylvania and New Jersey.
Yep.
Right over the river, his son had moved, and his son's name was Anthony. So Anthony and his wife moved across the Delaware River into New Jersey.
Okay.
And there was a massacre that happened in 1756, and it was called the Hunt/Swartwoot Raid. And now, before their last name was Swartwood, it was Swartwoot.
Okay.
With W-O-U-T. So if you look things up, it's going to have their original name. And what happened is these Native Americans came in and they massacred him, his family, his wife. I believe it said that she got killed. His sons were found with axes to their head, and Anthony was never seen again. So he was carried off by the Native Americans, and I don't know where he is. Yeah, and that was not the only family that it happened to. Obviously happened to the Hunt family also. So my theory is, because now when I was a little kid, my parents took us there and we went hiking on this trail called the McDade Trail. And the McDade Trail runs for about like 30 miles along the Delaware River. And I remember it feeling super weird through there and just uncomfortable. And I still feel that way to this day, like when I drive through there. And I've never said anything to anybody about it before this incident happened. And I remembered after my sister and I were leaving the cemetery that night, I said, holy shit. I said, when I was coming home from Gettysburg last year, I had sent my sister a clip from a podcast that I was listening to, because I was listening to a podcast on the way home as I was driving, and it was an episode that had listener tales that people wrote in and told things that happened to them. So this one story, someone wrote in about a cemetery that was along the McDade Trail in the Delaware Water Gap National Recreational Area. And it was an abandoned cemetery that they found in the woods, and they heard laughing and voices in the woods.
What?
While they were there. Yes, I'm not kidding you. And I had kind of forgotten about it, and I said to my sister, I said, holy shit. I said, I wonder if that was the cemetery that they were talking about.
Sure.
Because when I had listened to the episode last year, in my head, I'm like, oh, I want to find the cemetery and I want to go there. Never putting 2 and 2 together that this Swartwood cemetery could be the one they were talking about, because The McDade Trail is, if you're driving north, the McDade Trail is on your right-hand side of the road.
Sure.
And the cemetery is on the left-hand side of the road. So it's not extremely close to the McDade Trail, but like it is walking distance, but you would have to cross the road. So that I'm not sure if it's the same one, but it definitely could be.
Right. Yeah. I mean, if that trail's 30 miles long, I mean, that's a pretty good trek. I mean, there could be a lot of things around there for sure. But yeah. You know, you never know. But
recently, I just found that there's another abandoned cemetery up in the woods in that area also. But this one only has 7 graves.
Oh, wow.
So guess who's going there next?
Let me think. Do I get 3 guesses?
No. You get 1.
You get 1. So when are you going up there?
I'm not sure, but at some point it's going to happen. But yeah. So to sum up, to recap, just the other week, we went hiking again up in the area, but we went on a trail, the New Jersey side of the Delaware River. It was a 5-mile trail, and it was really tough, to be honest. And you kind of like hike uphill the whole time, and then it flattens out, and it starts to go back downhill again. And then it's a out and back trail, so you turn around and you go back out, go back down.
Okay, sure.
When we got to the top and it flattened out, it got like dead silent. Like you could not hear anything but the wind. There was no birds chirping. There was no nothing. And it was really, really unsettling. It was like we walked into this pocket. And I started to slow up, and my sister's like, "Are you tired?" And I'm like, "No." She's like, "Well, what's wrong with you?" And I'm like, "It's dead silent." And I was like, "There's no birds chirping. There's no nothing." And she's like, she's picking up on what I'm saying, because the theory is like, if the woods go dead silent, that means you need to get the heck out of there because something else is around.
Sure.
Whether it be some kind of predator or like paranormal or whatever. And I'm thinking paranormal because it just like, it felt weird. Like we walked in this pocket. And she's like, "No, you can hear the birds chirping," and just starts joking around and like making bird chirping noises, which made me laugh. And then all of a sudden, like we just started, it's like we slowly walked out of it, because then you would hear a bird like chirp, chirp, and then it went back to normal. It was so freaking weird.
Yeah. Yep. When that stuff happens, you know, it's like there's something primal that, you know, inside, like, even if you don't consciously notice it, like your brain notices it, and it's like, hey, you know, you should probably look around a little bit.
Yeah.
You should probably, you know, be a little bit more alert, you know?
Yeah. So that's my weirdness that's been happening. And now I'm kind of like, I don't know, it's kind of crazy.
Things are happening.
Yeah. But yeah, so I really feel like in that area that the bloodshed was so bad between the Native Americans and the people who were trying to colonize the area. I think it left like a permanent stain on the area, because I mean, you can still feel it to this day. And clearly I'm not the only one.
Yeah.
And I just found that out recently, that I'm not the only one. It's never really come up in conversation. I've never told anybody that I feel like it's weird there, and I felt like it was weird when I was a kid.
Sure. Yeah, that's really strange. But I never had heard that there was that kind of massacres in Pennsylvania. Like, I mean, I know there was in other places for sure, but I've never heard of the Pennsylvania ones. But on the other hand, it's not really that surprising either, because there was a ton of clashes that, you know, how many didn't get recorded over that period of time.
Well, and the time periods that this stuff was happening was during the French and Indian War, so it totally makes sense.
You definitely want to, you know, keep the lights close by, you know, at nighttime.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely want to go back to the cemetery when the sun's setting and kind of be there in the dark. But I'm also, to be honest, it's kind of scary.
Well, yeah, because there's nothing around there. Like, I look at Google Maps, there's nothing around there. Like, there's the road.
Yeah, literally. That's why it's even more unsettling, because we tried to debunk it, you know, the voices we heard.
Right.
And it's just a strange thing that happened.
Yeah.
So,
well, you put it on the list. There's places to revisit in the future. Preferably during a full moon.
Yeah.
So you can see.
Oh, no, that's not why I was saying yeah.
I definitely wouldn't want to go during a new moon, with like no.
Oh God, no! Oh my God!
You know how dark it'd be out there.
I wonder what the difference is. Like, I mean, it would be extremely dark, but I mean, I'm also wondering because like the full moon, because it's supposed to have more power or whatever, and that's when things are supposed to be super weird. So that's why I want to go during that, not because of the light, but. I have a headlight and flashlights, so that'd be fine.
That's true. Yeah. You were talking about how weird the moon looked, a week or whenever it was you guys went. But so the other morning, and it's not completely a thing, but the other morning I got up and I was going to work, and I go to work at 6 a.m. It's the sun's, up at this point. But when I got in the car, I could look directly at the sun. You could look at it, and it was like kind of dim and like, it looked like it was like cloudy, but it wasn't cloud. There were no clouds in the sky. I was like, and I'm sitting here staring at it. I'm like, what is going on? Like, normally can't look at the sun. It burn your retinas out, the whole 9 yards. But it was just like this very dim red light. I'm like,
that's weird.
It's very weird. I was like, well, whatever. I'm going to work. Maybe I'm just not awake. So I get to work and I do the work and I get off at 7 o'clock. And when I'm coming out, the sun's setting and it's the same way. Like, it's just this red, dim, like, I'm like, what the? But turned out what it was is that the Canadian wildfires were going through, and there was like, it was all getting funneled down right into Tennessee. And so that's why it was so hazy and so red looking. And that you could actually look at the sun because that's how hazy it was. And but nobody said anything about it. Like I hadn't heard anything. Like there was nothing on Facebook. I didn't see anything on the news, and it was just very unsettling feeling. Like it was very weird. Like, because I don't know, it's just not something you normally do is stare at the sun with no sunglasses on and be like, huh, well, that's weird.
Yeah, it's surprising that you didn't see anything posted about it, because that was going to be my question. I was going to say, are there any wildfires around? Yeah. Because I've seen exactly what you're talking about before.
And, I mean, we've had the wildfire smoke before, but I guess just the way that storm system was, it was literally funneling. You could look it on the satellite. It was literally getting funneled right into middle Tennessee. Like, wow. Yeah, the whole way. That's like weird. It was so weird. Like, and I guess that's why not a whole lot of people were talking about it, because it was like, not a huge wide path, and it was just the way the wind was going. It was just kind of funneling it right down. So it was like that for a couple days, and then it was fun. Like it all cleared up, and that was that. It was kind of weird. I mean, nothing like your level, but it was still kind of a weird, topic.
No, I mean, if you don't know what's going on, it definitely is unsettling. Yeah. It's not normal by any means.
It just goes to show, like, how unsettled you can get. You're just like, my brain just kind of like went, what? What? Yeah. Why? What is going on?
Yeah.
And I'm the rational one. Like, where's the scientific explanation for this? Like, why am I staring at the sun at 6:30 in the morning and not burning my retinas out? It was a very weird thing.
Yeah.
So, yeah, those were very interesting. You've had a way more interesting spring and summer than I have. That's for sure.
Yeah. That's why I said I feel like I've been like everywhere but nowhere at the same time, going places and weird things are happening.
Just like, what weird thing's going to happen tomorrow?
Yeah. All right. Well, I guess, we're going to wrap this one up, and it's just kind of like a catch-up episode.
Yeah, thanks for sharing. That was super cool. I look forward to seeing some of the photos from the cemetery.
Yeah, I'll send them because it's pretty neat. I actually sent them to Jason, and he's like, that's creepy.
I can't wait to see him.
Yeah. All right, guys. Well, thanks for tuning in, listening. You can, go follow us on Instagram at midnight_in-the-mountains, and make sure you follow us on any podcatcher. Please rate, review, and share the show. And that's all I got for you. See you guys later.
See you guys.